Nick, in the UK, you were the CEO of a production company called CTVC, which you pretty much went in and reinvented in a lot of ways. Tell us a little about that experience.
That was my first job as a CEO. I really had no idea what I was getting into. In fact, somebody rang me, a friend, and said, oh, there's an ad in the Guardian newspaper. My career has been linked to the Guardian newspaper's job section. And he said, I don't know what exactly the job is, I can't remember. I think it's a head of development of stories, coming up with ideas. I thought, well, yeah, I think I could do that. And I found the ad, and it was for a CEO. And I'd never really wanted to be a CEO, but I thought, well, hang on, it's specializing in an area that I specialize in, religion. And what was I then, 40, 42? And I thought, it's about time. So I got the job and really discovered a company which had a very a long history, a well-respected history, but perhaps time and markets had changed dramatically. And I think you'll find with the onset of technology or the loosening of sort of vertical structures within societies, that the model it had was now fighting the market and the... So I discovered really a skill set to, I think, break down and rebuild. And in many ways, that's what I've done since. I've gone to companies where I've had to break down and rebuild. And somebody once told me there are two types of bosses. There's one who's good at breaking down and rebuilding and then gets bored. And there's another one who is just really good at getting a company which is pretty much there. And they're two very different skill sets. I remember I covered the fall of communism in Czechoslovakia, that was, and talking to some of the leaders that had been involved in bringing the people on, inspiring them to break down communism and have the strength to move on to a post-communist era. And somebody once said to me, the people who've broken down are not the ones to build our future. It needs a very different skill set. I've always wanted the challenge of creating a vision and then building it. And then luckily CTVC in a way gave me that perspective. It was a wonderful organization, but it had got entrenched in an old way of doing things in media. And in the end, I had to shut it down, in effect, or shut down the building. We were based in a wonderful mock Tudor mansion just outside London, in a place called Bushey. It had wonderful studios, oak paneling, wonderful big oil paintings on the walls, a gardener, an under-gardener, you know.
Wow. And
I'm thinking, well, how does this work if you're making a television program? I can understand the studio, but you know, we've got a very big place. And in years ago, when you had time and money, and you would go there, and you know, it'd be great to put your production team, and it'd be great to have the studio there, and you have the gardens and the restaurant. It's an all-in-one stop shop.
Wow.
Fantastic. But everything was changing. You know, you didn't need a studio to do a studio shoot, put it that way. There were many ways to do it. And so budgets were falling. There wasn't the money to make studio programs anymore. All overheads were being, you know, really pushed down. There was no way you could actually keep up those wonderful grounds and gardens. And that was hard to break into something and knock it down and then move. We moved next to Tower Bridge in London. And we went from about 30 people down to about 5. Rebuilt. And I think, you know, we ended up with about, I don't know, in the year, 30 hours of television on mainstream TV. And we'd reinvented ourselves.